Note, due to operational security, the following timeline is an estimate based on press releases and publicly released data on the B-2's capabilities. It was a mission no one could stop, and no one could see until it was too late. 7 ghosts slipping deep into the most hotly defended airspace in the world and delivering crippling blows to enemy infrastructure. This is how the B-2 bombers destroyed Iran's secret nuclear sites minute by minute. Whiteman Air Force Base, 0001 hours EDT. America's fleet of B-2 bombers, the most capable strategic aircraft publicly acknowledged to begin operation, take off from their home base at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. The bombers were first fielded in the 1980s, and their purpose? To penetrate deep into Soviet territory, to deliver a nuclear strike directly at the Kremlin and other critical military sites. Their public reveal carried a direct message to the Soviet leadership: we can reach you anytime, anywhere, and you can't stop us. Over their 40-year service life, these aircraft have received substantial upgrades, but the basic features of their design still make them the stealthiest publicly acknowledged aircraft in the world, including an electrostatic effect along the wings pioneered by anti-gravity researcher Thomas Townsend Brown. Once at altitude, the flight splits. Some aircraft veer west toward Guam in an attempt to create a deliberate distraction to mislead any observers about U.S. intentions. Their flight path suggests the U.S. is moving closer to carry out an attack on Iran's nuclear sites. Meanwhile, the eastbound aircraft press forward, carrying out the actual attack with the element of surprise. As 7 of the B-2 bombers level out and fly east, only a tiny handful of people in the entire world know exactly what's about to happen. In the belly of each aircraft are 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator bombs. These massive 30,000-pound bombs were custom-built for exactly this mission, taking out deeply buried Iranian nuclear sites. Their origin hails back to the early 2000s when Air Force bunker busters failed to reliably destroy subterranean sites in Iraq. As Iran edged closer to becoming a rogue nuclear threat, the pressure mounted on the U.S. Air Force to deliver. The task wasn't just to produce a reliable bunker buster, it had to be one engineered to penetrate the most deeply buried and heavily fortified targets. And the world will soon find out if the U.S. can deliver on promised capabilities. Off the coast of Newfoundland, 0300 EDT. Part of the B-2 stealth is in mission planning, therefore the strike route is meticulously planned around adversarial and even friendly radar sites, while taking the necessary in-air refueling into account. The B-2 has a range of 6,000 nautical miles while carrying a full combat load, but the aircraft are already topping up a few hundred miles off the Canadian coast of Newfoundland. B-2 operations are a modern and very high-tech version of the classic shell game. Iran has powerful friends, including Russia and China, who both field very capable surveillance satellites. The B-2 can hide from radar and even regulate its thermal signature, but the tankers that it relies on to get to its target can't. Therefore, a dozen tankers have been dispatched by the Air Force in both east and west directions, obfuscating exactly which tanker the B-2s are using. This confounds any effort to track them and guess their route via their air support assets. Each B-2 tops up its tanks and heads in a northeast direction, using the curve of the Earth to shorten its distance across the Atlantic Ocean. Somewhere near the California coast, the diversionary flight is doing the same thing. Off the coast of Italy, 1000 hours EDT. Air Force tankers stationed in Europe meet up with the strike package off the coast of Italy. To obfuscate the mission for any enemy observers, Air Force tankers also fly east toward the heart of Europe and west toward Spain. The bombers are refilled as they prepare for the most complex part of the air operation. Regional politics make the next leg of this flight an extremely sensitive one. While Iran has few friends with capable air defense systems, Israel's involvement in the ongoing conflict has created some Iranian sympathizers within some nations the B-2s must now overfly. Then there are the less than reliable allies, such as Turkey, whom the U.S. would prefer to simply leave in the dark about the incoming strike package. Despite this next leg being the shortest, the bombers must take a circuitous route to get there. Only the key regional ally, Saudi Arabia, has been filled in on the plan, as there is no hiding the massive support package that the Air Force is assembling and which will meet up with the bombers in a few hours. This is the most complex air operation the U.S. has carried out in 30 years, but so far the mission is going exceptionally well. The mission is fraught with risks, though. Not only would a downed B-2 be a billion-dollar disaster, but the recovery of any surviving technology could allow Russia or China to advance decades in their own advanced aerospace programs. This cannot be allowed to happen under any circumstance, and so there are plans in place for any downed B-2 to be obliterated with air and missile strikes. Classified location: unknown USN Submarine, 1200 hours EDT. Prowling deep under the waves, a U.S. Navy nuclear-powered submarine is undergoing crew drills. In just a few hours, they'll be joining the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. The former nuclear ballistic missile submarine has seen a mission change halfway through its service life. Loaded with land attack cruise missiles and specialty munitions with classified capabilities, the submarine is an underwater arsenal ship. It can unleash the conventional firepower of an entire air force in a single decisive strike. Today it's tasked with neutralizing key targets in Iran, launching volleys of missiles to destroy surviving air defense radars, communication nodes, and surface facilities at Iran's nuclear sites. Saudi Arabia, 1540 hours EDT. High above the deserts of Saudi Arabia, the B-2 formation cycles through refueling with 2 U.S. tankers. This final top-up provides the range needed to reach their targets and seek alternate exit points if things go sideways, though their operations are pretty limited over hostile airspace. Egressing into North Turkmenistan could come with serious risks. The U.S. and Turkmenistan maintain polite relations, but the dictatorship in power is closer to Russia than America. An emergency landing in Turkmenistan would likely end up with a surviving B-2 being handed over to the Russians. That's why, as a contingency, the U.S. aircraft are prepared to strike far into the region before an enemy can get their hands on coveted B-2 technology. Azerbaijan is a safe bet, given closer relations with the U.S. and antagonism by Azerbaijan towards Russia. However, the best bet would be for a B-2 crew to try to head into U.S. bases in Iraq or simply ditch their aircraft into the Caspian Sea or Persian Gulf. The pilots of the 7 B-2s who have just completed a trip halfway across the world consider their options as they go over their final flight plans. They are held in orbit over Saudi Arabia as a massive U.S. Air Force strike package assembles just off the coast. Persian Gulf, 1700 hours EDT. The B-2s finally join in with their escorts, a massive strike package made up of F-22s, F-35s, F-15s, and even Navy F-18s. It also includes airborne early warning and air control aircraft, as well as specialty electronic warfare aircraft. It's the greatest airborne show of force since Desert Storm, an aerial armada packing more firepower than entire militaries. The strike package is headed straight for Iran's coast, but will break up before reaching it. The F-22, the stealthiest fighter anywhere in the world, will escort the B-2s. They are the only fighters that can get close to the B-2's own greatly reduced radar signature. Each aircraft has a job to do, though the strike package makes use of pre-established corridors created by the Israeli Air Force, which is still flying over the heart of Tehran. Careful coordination between the U.S. and Israel is needed to ensure secrecy but also avoid any friendly fire incidents. The F-35s take point, vacuuming up vast amounts of electronic data from surviving Iranian air defenses. At the same time, a volley of dozens of missiles are screaming into Iran, launched by a U.S. Navy submarine. F-15s and F-18s fly quarterback, trailing behind the F-35s, and ready to deliver long-range firepower to any Iranian pilot, brave or foolish enough to engage. Some, however, will launch standoff attacks against ground targets, their weapons guided home by stealthy F-35s leading the charge. The B-2s and the F-22s hang back, protected by the aerial armada and their supreme stealth. Iran, 1800 EDT. This is the moment that the U.S. military has been rehearsing since the early 2000s, and one forced on them by Israel's sudden and devastating campaign to decapitate Iran's nuclear program. U.S. combat aircraft have officially crossed into Iran. The volley of cruise missiles that preceded them destroyed fixed sites the Israelis couldn't reach, carving out several avenues into the center of Iran. The aerial armada breaks up into smaller groups as the B-2s themselves split up, headed for different facilities, Fordow and Natanz. The Isfahan is leveled by cruise missile strikes. The strike package is encountering almost no resistance, either because of the surprise factor, the missile bombardment, or the devastating air campaign carried out by Israel. The mission that U.S. military planners have stressed over for 2 decades is going better than anyone could have hoped. But this isn't just about striking at Iran's nuclear program. The United States is creating a global show of force, with the primary audience members being Russia and China. America wants to make it clear that it can still strike anywhere it wants, at any time that it chooses. With war against China on the horizon, mission success could be the deterrent many have hoped for. But if America's famed B-2s fail, it might convince China that the U.S. is a fading paper tiger, and its most feared weapons are not as capable as once thought. Fordow Nuclear Facility, 1840 EDT. Fordow represents the most formidable challenge of the entire mission. The facility houses a vast atrium full of centrifuges, which spin at thousands of revolutions a minute in order to concentrate enriched uranium. Iran has known it was vulnerable to US air attack for decades, which is why Fordow is built into a mountain, its most sensitive components buried over 260 feet deep. The penetration distance of the GBU-57 is publicly acknowledged as 196 feet, but there are various factors at play when calculating that depth. Soil composition is a major one. Softer, looser soil and clay layers can help the bomb penetrate even deeper, while solid stone like granite can reduce that depth significantly. In order to reach such depths, the bomb makes use of kinetic energy. Despite weighing around 30,000 pounds, most of that weight is in the casing. Only about 5,000 pounds are explosives. The thick, heavy metal casing is the key to the bomb's success, as it allows it to punch through solid rock as it falls from incredible heights. The casing also protects the sensitive electronics in the rear of the bomb, which have to survive hundreds of Gs of impact force. The large penetrator smart fuse each bomb carries adjusts the exact amount of detonation based on the bomb depth and target characteristics. But for this attack, the most important part of the bomb is its GPS/INS guidance package. Built into the bomb itself rather than attached to it like a JDAM kit, this precision guidance package has one job: to be as precise as a sniper. That's because if the attack on Fordow is to be successful, there is only one way to get the explosive payload of each bomb deep enough. The main centrifuge hall of the Fordow facility generates so much heat, it has to be vented somehow and fresh air brought in. And that's why two very well-designed vents have been installed over the facility, going from its heart to the surface where they can let out heat and pump in fresh air. But no level of disguising is good enough to hide them from America's surveillance technologies. These vents will be the key to the attack's success. That means that each bomb has to fall even more precisely than its publicly advertised circular error of probability of 33 feet. They're going to have to be pinpoint precise, smashing through the cover of each vent, through the vent duct itself, and deep down into the facility. The odds are the Iranians built the vents with curves or right-hand turns, but this can still give each bomb a few dozen meters of penetration. 6 B-2s open their bomb bay doors, releasing a salvo of 12 of the largest conventional bombs in existence. Each bomb is programmed to follow the one before it into the same impact point, diving deeper with each strike. They accomplish this with extreme precision. Satellite imagery will later confirm 6 penetration holes, evidence that each second bomb followed its predecessor into the exact same entry hole. It is an astonishing demonstration of accuracy, even by modern stealth bomber standards. Once at depth, the bombs explode in rapid succession, creating an earthquake-like effect that collapses underground structures, burying them under hundreds of tons of rubble. The blast from the attack is so bright that one of the escorting fighter pilots remarks that night briefly became day. At the same time as the assault on Fordow, the 7th B-2's bombs strike the facility at Natanz. The time-on-target attack is designed so that each B-2 strike is coordinated, giving the enemy no time to react, even if they could. Wheeling away, the B-2s take different egress routes headed for the Mediterranean, where they will link up with waiting tankers. There's no need for secrecy anymore. America has proven that the B-2 is still the most capable, acknowledged bomber in the world, and nations like China and Iran will be studying the mission for years to come. The success of the attacks, however, will take months to ascertain, despite immediate proclamations of the mission accomplished by the White House. With the facility so deeply buried, there's simply no way of getting intelligence that can confirm success. Even Iran will remain uncertain for weeks, as the entrances were buried under tons of dirt in anticipation of an attack. Iran will have to dig all that debris out, and in the meantime, surface teams sampled the penetration holes for radioactive leaks, indicating that the centrifuges were indeed destroyed or not. Further obfuscating that picture, Iranian military commanders give opposing damage assessment surveys. Some claim that the facilities have been destroyed, others that they are untouched. Part of this is a wish to appease the regime and deny the US a public victory. But this is also a carefully managed information deception campaign meant to deny the US intelligence on how effective its bunker-busting bombs really are. Instead, public officials look for other clues, such as the unwillingness by Iran to either give up its nuclear program or engage in official peace talks in the wave of the attacks. To many, including the Defense Intelligence Agency, this indicates that the strikes were only partially successful and Iran has only been set back by months. What is sure is that the B-2s did the job they were designed for, and as the B-21 Raider soon joins the US arsenal, America proves it is still on the cutting edge of airborne lethality. Behind those pinpoint strikes is a pilot making it all happen. Watch Day in the Life of a $2 billion stealth bomber pilot to see what it's like to fly a Ghost, or click on this video instead.